Good to work. All right, guys. So I'm talking about music genres and how they influence us. So it seems like a pretty basic topic, but there's three questions I really want to hone in on. So what draws a person to a certain genre of music? How does the genre of music influence the person back? And my most debatable topic: how much should a believer listen to Christian music compared to a lot of secular music that's more popular in today's world? So, defined music is vocal or instrumental sounds or both combined in such a way as to produce beauty of form, harmony, and what I want to hone in on is expression of emotion. That's from Oxford Languages, the very first thing that came up. So, what draws a person to a certain genre of music? My first question. Um, there's a bunch of different examples outside of this, but these are the four I want to focus on. So, car rides, studying, sports, mostly before, like pregame, you listen to music, and worship, so church. All other things are like celebrations. When you're working, you listen to music sometimes. So there's a lot of different scenarios that you might listen to a genre of music. Um, so first, I'll start with car rides. Car rides are enhanced by singing and emotions emitted from the song playing at the time. So I think we all listen to music in the car or podcasts or something like that. So if I'm on a boring car ride, I might go with the Bee Gees or Earth, Wind, and Fire or my favorite band, America. Something to lighten up the mood, something fun. Late night driving is a little more emotional for me sometimes, so I might go with Rex Orange County, Mac DeMarco, or Frank Ocean. And then road trips, I like to get a little nostalgia. Is that a word? Nostalgia. High School Musical, old theme songs. There's a bunch of different ones that I enjoy. But you also listen to music while you're studying. And so many composers in the past, and I'll talk about it later, but it's been proven that listening to this kind of music while studying can actually help you out, retain information. And so music while we listen or while we study can cure concentration problems and produce lasting focus to help one retain more information. So guys like Beethoven and Piero Piccioni and Brahms, and then there's tons of other composers like Mozart, Chopin, Vivaldi, Bach, Prokofiev, Wagner, and Strauss. All these guys, they make music that doesn't have any lyrics in them, but they still exert emotions that help you focus and tell a good story sometimes. And so you see it also in sports. So pretty notable faces on the left. So most sports teams will listen to music that will create energy, adrenaline, and a hyped up atmosphere. I think the majority of the athletes in the room can agree that pregame music does actually help you a little bit with at least warm-ups and getting energy going into the games. Shout out to my dad who works on the soundboard. So my walk-up song, Turn My Swag On by Soulja Boy, Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, 50 Cent, and then there's many modern-day songs that I can't really talk about because they're super explicit. But these are just a couple of songs that I might listen to before sports or pregame. But also in church, we talk about worship music. And so we're called to worship our Father in heaven, and music and hymns are a vital part of worship. And so you have songs like Amazing Grace and It Is Well With My Soul, How Great Thou Art, and a new modern day song, Revelation song, which I really like. And so this guy on the top is John Newton. He wrote Amazing Grace. And then this guy on the bottom is Horatio Spafford. And he wrote the lyrics for, I believe, It Is Well With My Soul. But we can also prefer music that we relate to. And so music we listen to can talk about relationships and breakups, friendships that we experience ourselves in our lives. And that draws people into people like Taylor Swift, Olivia Rodrigo, Ed Sheeran. They all talk about their experiences, relationships, negative and positive. And so when we relate to this, we are drawn to this genre of music. But we also prefer artists that speak on current problems. These are the list of people that speak on topics that are notable in today's world and in the past that speak on current events. Marvin Gaye, What's Going On, talks about Vietnam War veteran returning from the war and sees just all the stuff going on in the 60s with the hippie movement and drugs and great unrest because of the Vietnam War. Aretha Franklin, with Respect, talks about women's rights and how women deserve more influence, more power, because it is dominated by a male world when she was talking. John Lennon, who's a famous member of the Beatles, talks about, in the song Imagine, one of the most influential songs of all time, talks about world peace and just violence and what's going on. Kendrick Lamar, one of my favorite songs of all time, is Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst. He talks about violence in his hometown of Compton, prostitution, but at the end of the song you see that a woman converts a couple gang members to Christianity, which is a really cool tie into the song. Tears for Fears, Everybody Wants to Rule the World is a popularized song, but the message behind it talks about the Soviet Union and American tension with nuclear fallout possibilities, and everybody wants to dominate the world. Joni Mitchell created the song Big Yellow Taxi. It was popularized by Counting Crows. But she talks about appreciate what you have, kind of along the lines of the Lorax, which talks about you cut down trees to build up a parking lot, to quote the song exactly. Foster the People talks about mental health in teens, because you know this song is kind of a song about a school shooter, the lyrics. It's really violent and really just kind of weird, but this is a time where mental health is pretty prevalent in teens because of phones and technology and isolation. And then the last song is This the World We Created by Queen. This was the very last song at Live Aid, one of the most famous concerts of all time, and obviously kind of the title explains for itself. Poverty, hunger, just kind of the problems in today's world. And then finally, we prefer artists that have pleasing lyrics. And so these three guys, and mostly MF Doom, he's one of my favorite artists. He kind of just raps about random stuff, but he has really good flow, really good lyrics. He uses a lot of unique words. And then Kanye West, obviously he's really debatable in today's world, but he has very good lyrics and he's very talented. You know, like him or not, he is gifted and he uses his lyrics well. And then A Tribe Called Quest is a 90s hip-hop group. They use very good lyrics, have really good beats. So yeah. So moving on to our next topic, how does the genre of music influence a person? Obviously, Nick Leno in the back is going to talk a little bit more about this when he goes, but I'm going to do a brief explanation. Our brain hears and interprets the sounds from music in the temporal lobe, which is shown right there. And most of the time, prefer music that has memories linked to it. And so I want you guys to think about maybe one of your favorite songs right now, and maybe there's a memory, a car ride that's linked back to it, or you were in a setting that was pleasing. And so when hearing these songs, a neurotransmitter in our brain called dopamine is released. And so dopamine is responsible for good feelings and pleasure and energy and motivation, and it combats anxiety and depression, which are very popular in today's world for other reasons. And so different studies, the Mozart effect, this is to prove my point. In 1993, Francis Roscher conducted a study on a large group of college students in order to connect the study between music and test taking. The test group that received the Mozart music in the background scored higher on a test than the control group that had no music at all. Frontier in Psychology found that 26 of 28 groups exposed to music over time saw decreased depression levels. And research has shown from North Shore University that music can reduce heart rate and blood pressure, which my next topic is the positive listen to music. It can reduce seizures, can make you a better communicator because the lyrics we hear in the songs, maybe vocab that you hear can help you communicate when you have a kind of like a reading. It can boost your immune system. We see with dopamine release, helps repair brain damage, evoke memories, can help Parkinson's patients by remembering memories they have when they once listened to that song. And finally, can manipulate your mood, which is pretty obvious that listening to a certain genre of music will manipulate your mood. And so the last question, how much do you believe or listen to Christian and secular music? In Psalm 147:1, we see how good it is to sing praises to our God, how pleasant and fitting to praise him. Obviously, David was well known for the hymns that he wrote and the songs. He was very, very involved with worship, and we still sing many of his songs today. And then Acts 16:25, about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. The background of the story is that Paul and Silas were in prison, and after they started singing and worshiping, there was a great earthquake that shook the prison. And so many of the prisoners were just absolutely baffled by what was going on, and Paul and Silas baptized most of the prisoners, including the prison keeper, because they believed in Christ that night. And so going into the topic right here, there's thoughts behind a song that you want to think about before you're listening to a specific song. Some songs have genuine meanings, like we talked about, behind them. They are a form of expression in art, so it's not bad to listen to maybe songs that have a couple explicit words, but you want to think about the meaning behind them. Think about social, political, environmental issues, and maybe reflect on how Christians observe the particular worldview. So maybe while you're listening to a song, you think, what is my stance? What should be my stance on this song? And then I'd say refrain from overly explicit songs. I know I talked about some of the songs I listened to in pregame. Obviously, I would recommend to listen to those in portion. Do not make that your primary genre. There's a couple of rappers in particular, like 21 Savage and Meek Mill, and a couple of these guys that just really never have that positive of a message to share. And so I would listen to those guys in portion. Maybe don't make that your primary music genre. And also think about the setting. My challenge for you guys is think about dedicating one day a week to primarily Christian music. Most of us will choose Sunday, including myself, because it's kind of a day we set apart for church and worship. But I'm starting it right now, and it's done a lot of good things for me when I just dedicate one day of the week to worship music. And you also want to listen to songs in the right context. Philippians 4:8 says, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." And so like those rappers I talked about, they don't really have many noble or right or lovely things to say. And so you don't want to surround yourself with only these guys or girls. And the closing statements, this is a massive concert. Music has a way of bringing people together that many other things cannot do. So my other challenge for you all is to take time to reflect on the music you listen to and use it to make memories with the people around you. Thank you, guys.
You got any questions or comments for me?
What's your? I'm sorry, I came in late. First
No, it's all good.
Apologies. Because I probably missed it. Like, what's your thesis? Like, what was your big idea? Like, if you were to summarize this thing. Sorry.
Well, I think I had it written on my seminar or my long paper. But it was that music has the influence of expression and emotion, and it's a vital part of life that people take for granted.
Let me process a little bit.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, I got some questions.
Yep.
So some of the stuff you put up, some wide, like a wide variety of stuff that you had. That's good. I would think that some musical genres are what we refer to as acquired tastes. Right?
Of course, yeah.
Like some of the stuff you put on, I assume there's probably some folks in here, maybe even like it's a generational thing where, I don't like that all that much.
Mm-hmm.
My question is this: do you think there are barriers to a genre or a particular band or group or whatever being an acquired taste? Meaning, and what I mean by that is, are there some groups that just like nobody should get or appreciate or be fans of it, or is this just an open field? Are we just like any form of music or any level of?
Mm-hmm.
Does the question make sense? Like,
Yeah,
are
it makes sense.
there any barriers to? No, that's just objectively bad music, or is it just? It's just not my cup of tea. Maybe you like it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely there are barriers, but I don't think that there's any, because obviously everybody in here has a different taste in music. And that's perfectly fine, which goes back to my point that it relates back to memories that we've made. I mean, my dad primarily listens to 70s music while we listen to dinner, and the only reason that I'm in love with 70s music now is because I was surrounded by it and we made good memories together. And so obviously I'm not going to say the same thing about Swedish death metal because my dad doesn't listen to that and I haven't been surrounded by that. But there's maybe people in here that have been and have memories traced back to that, and so they kind of have grown fond of the genre itself.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Christians. I like the idea that Christians should be open to music that's not explicitly Christian. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any type of drawback, would you say, to the other side of that, where, and I like your recommendation that we should have some, like I like the idea that maybe there's one day of the week that
Mm-hmm.
it's just almost like as a Sabbath type
Mm-hmm.
pattern where this is only Christian music today. Is there any type of a drawback to exclusively Christian music? Because there's a lot of Christians where it's like that's the only thing they listen to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you say there's any type of a drawback to that?
I mean, I've always heard the phrase, too much of anything is bad, unless it relates to Christianity. Too much reading the Bible isn't bad, I don't think. Too much listening to Christian music. I mean, my grandmother and my Nana and a bunch of people I know, they exclusively listen to his radio and stuff like that. And I see absolutely no problem with that. Obviously, the audience I'm speaking to, including myself, probably won't listen to Christian music. primarily just only that, and so that's why you kind of have to work around that, and that's why you look at like, hey, maybe there's a message behind the song that isn't Christian, but it can kind of help me and hear, you know, the opinions of somebody else.
Okay.
Yeah, this is tough. And one, this is what I wish.
Okay.
I wish I feel like you played real safe here. Like, because there was nothing controversial in this that I can push against. Which
Okay.
is fine, like that's play. Like, but I want something to push against.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this is, how would you respond? Because it seems like you were saying two different things.
Okay.
And it's fine. But just help me process it. Because I also feel the tension. Like my kids, they have the entirety of the soundtrack of Hamilton memorized, and there's multiple versions. They're introducing certain vocabulary. I had to explain to them what a bastard is to
Okay.
my 9-year-old, because it's literally the first line of the entire story. Right. So I get the tension.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of content versus like how do you navigate that value.
Mm-hmm.
I heard you advocate for being really careful of the content and the amounts and the totality of it.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it seems like where you're at in your journey is you're like, setting aside one day for worship music is where I'm at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for now.
How do you see I also feel that, by the way. Like for me, my kids know Thursday morning we're listening to worship music, and literally the rest of the time it's Disney musical
Hamilton
soundtracks. That's what my kids demand. And so, like, I'm also navigating this. Like, what would you say to that? Like, yes, selection, emphasis on music matters, and also rhythm in my car is one day a week. My kids are listening to worship music. Does that make sense?
Kind of like what are my thoughts on that?
Yeah, like you acknowledge like the amount and what we listen to matters, and 1 in 7 is worshipful.
For sure. I mean, yeah, it's people have said that it takes like a ton of positives to kind of create or to make up for a negative. And while I wouldn't say rap music is necessarily a negative, you know, surrounding yourself with a whole day of positive Christian music, I think can do great things for somebody. And, you know, I kind of do see my contradiction with listening to rap music before pre-games and stuff. But I guess, you know, when I'm warming up on the football field, it's not really a focus on like, all right, let's see what 21 Savage has to say about drugs and sex and money. It's more like this is a quick-paced, quick-tempo, loud beat song.
Chris Tomlin doesn't really give you that.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, Kerry Jobe isn't gonna be, you know, thumping the bass before a St. Joe's game. But yes, sir. So portion control, I guess.
So on that note, see what I did there. No.
That's right.
You mentioned a little bit about the effect that. Can you go back to that? Like what you mentioned about the effect that music has on a set of students, right? Like that study or.
Oh yeah, the Mozart effect.
Okay. So you mentioned the Mozart effect, but then what you just mentioned before a football game seems the opposite of a Mozart effect, where Mozart's going to help you learn things. Okay, so what about this other music that you would listen to before a game helps you perform better in the music, or in that particular sport?
I mean, yeah, I guess the Mozart effect itself is kind of a calming presence that doesn't have loud lyrics in the background. But I guess this kind of sounds, you know, not great. But I guess the aggression of the song before a game kind of it makes you emotional. It makes you mad. It makes you angry. Like you want to get the job done. You want to win. Makes you competitive. So I guess that's obviously the difference between the songs. It's just aggression versus calmness.
So the next question is there any other scenario? I don't play sports anymore. Should I not listen to that playlist anymore? Is there any point in time where aggression, like I'm just trying to think like, okay, cool, that gets me more aggressive. When do I need that anymore?
Teaching sophomores.
Well, I
Probably.
mentioned sports maybe. I used it. Oh no, it was the different scenarios. I also mentioned that celebrations like prom night. I wasn't about to go play a football game, but listening to that music on prom night was like getting us all jumping. Because it was a celebration. It gave you energy. It gave you motivation.
Right.
I guess so. I think aggressive music has different ways of, just kind of giving you life and energy.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe in a prom setting or while I'm working, honestly. Honestly, I forgot to mention the story. Now it's a good time, but, when we went to Honduras, we had to climb up that mountain, right, that you've probably heard stories about. And I wasn't listening to music the first half, and, I was drinking all my water. I felt lightheaded, could see stars, and I was like, what if I just tried to listen to rap music right now? And this might sound kind of weird, but I credit getting up the other half of the mountain with the amount of energy I had with what I was listening to right then. That it gave me energy and motivation in life to kind of do the second half because I just put in the AirPod and I was chilling.
Okay, this is a real specific question.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, it's fine. So the listening to classical music while studying or while trying to have you concentrate on things, like I've heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
What about does a playlist like lo-fi beats, like does that have the similar effect? Is it music tone that is unique to classical music that has that effect? Did you read anything about that, basically?
I see your point, though, that, and I've tried this out while I'm studying myself, I find that the absence of lyrics helps me out a lot. I do like lo-fi beats is kind of a soothing tone mostly, right? And I don't see the problem with listening to that or classical because they both kind of have the same mood or tone, and they have the absence of lyrics most of the time.
Classmates, y'all got anything for Trey?
Bruce?
Are there any negative side effects of listening to music too much?
Listening to music too much? I did say too much of anything can be hurtful. Not really. Madison listens to music probably 3 or 4 times as much as I do, while she's sleeping and stuff, and all day long. So I guess it doesn't hurt to listen to music as much as you can. I guess just switch up the genre. Try to find new things for different settings and stuff.
This is kind of going off his question, but we get numb to the fact that 21 Savage is talking about sex, drugs,
It's
all
true.
that.
It's true.
Is too much Christianity music, will we get the numb effect of that, of what it's actually speaking to us if we listen to it like your grandma does?
Yeah, the unfortunate problem is that burnout is it's a real thing in the church, and I've seen people that go to church service and listen to Christian music and do all the regular things, and they just kind of lose the urge to continue pursuing Christ. And so, I think there is a numbing effect that if I can get numb to listening to 21 Savage all the time, then maybe there's a numbing effect to listen to Christian music where I'm just kind of used to it. So that's why I said it's not bad to listen to Christian music primarily. But yeah, there is a possibility. And my grandmother's a lot wiser than me, and she probably listens to the lyrics and focuses on them and studies. And
Yeah, and that was sort of my question earlier. That was a much better way. You did a better job saying it than I did. And so then what that makes me think of is I can't think that that's a terribly good thing that we're making ourselves numb to some of the content that these guys are talking about, right? I can't think that that's a terribly good thing that people can say those types of things and me be okay with them,
okay, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So could you comment on that, what, and maybe, I don't know if you got evidence for this or maybe it's just anecdotal or whatever, but I wonder what it looks like to see that some music is having a bad effect on me. Given that what you told James is doesn't seem like there seems to be a barrier where maybe I'm listening to too much music, period.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems pretty obvious that there's too much of a particular type of music.
Yeah.
So maybe talk to that, what type of introspection do I need to see this music is not impacting me very well?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what I answered James with, switching up your genre of music on the regular and finding new things in different genres like lo-fi beats or Swedish death metal. I mean, it's not bad to kind of touch on every single genre that you can find and find new music. And so, I mean, you see all of these artists are vastly different in their approach to music and, what they speak on and what they speak for. But in relation, they're all comparing in that they affect me in a way, And so that's why I'm not only chilling on Taylor Swift, and there's nothing wrong with that maybe, because I know people that Taylor Swift is their primary, but she speaks on a lot of different things. And all these guys and girls, they all have different topics. So I like to switch it up a lot.
Yeah. Cool. Y'all got anything else for Trey? All right, real
Bush.
quick.
So,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
so you kind of touched on I don't remember where it was, but you said something like reading is kind of the same kind of thing where you could
Yeah, with
talk about
communication skills.
vocabulary or
Yeah,
something.
right there.
Okay, so do you think that music and reading are on that same level of like being able to, or like what do you think music could improve that reading does also? Like, do you think it's just a vocabulary type thing, or is
Yeah,
it like
so-
being a better person?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that, when you read a book and you look at the words and you find new and longer words that you haven't seen before, it can kind of improve your grammar. And so some people listen to music just kind of, they tune out the lyrics, right? But I think if you actually take the time to listen to the lyrics and kind of some of the flows that artists have, I do think it can have the same effect as reading. It can improve your grammar when you hear different words that kind of you haven't heard before. So I need to do more research on that. I didn't really focus on that too much. But yeah, I do think there's a correlation there, just with hearing longer words.